talk about. We have Dr. Ken Ukaoha joining us now to discuss this recent development, or if you like, something that's been ongoing at the Nigeria-Seme border. He is a specialist in international trade and development law. Thanks for joining us this evening. I saw throughout you were shaking your head in huge disappointment. First, let's start with how we can understand the place of international trade and development law as it relates to the border security or border, decay crisis in the, between Seme and Nigeria.
Okay, thank you very much. First, let me start by commending the ECOWAS president for standing up from the office and going down practically to see what is happening in the field. And I think that gives him some kind of clean and on-the-spot assessment of what is happening there. Secondly, is that today, and this is also going to answer your question, we're talking about ECOWAS at 50 years. This particular month, on the 28th precisely, ECOWAS will be 50 years old. And I think that if you look at the Lagos Plan of Action that's midwifed ECOWAS today, it was underpinned and targeted at regional economic development, regional economic integration. And this is part of international law on trade, which has to do with redistribution of wealth among regional communities. We call them regional economic communities, RECs. And this is a standard where countries come together within an axis and donate, or relinquish rather, their sovereignties to a supranational entity. And in this case, it is ECOWAS, where 15 member countries have donated or donated their sovereignty. And here, ECOWAS now holds the supranational power. But if you look at what is happening here at the border now, by the way, this same border we are looking at here was funded by the European Union to the tune of about 18 million euro. And that was in 2018 or so. And it is a big shame.
It's just 7 years ago.
That's 7 years ago. This is what we are seeing. Dilapidation. Where is Nigeria? Where is, ECOWAS? Where is Benin Republic? And the European Union, well, just yesterday, they had EU Day, which also marks the, relationship between the two regions. ECOWAS was modeled around the European Union. But the point I'm making here now is, if the European Union has spent all of this money, courtesy of the relationship they have with ECOWAS, and then the member states are supposed to take care of these platforms and all of the facilities, and here we have the moribund, most of them not working. When you said, I listened and I heard that some of them are not, they are not functional. They are not misfunctioning anyway. They are not functional for a long time. These canals are not functional. And that's why you see on the border, there along the border, you see many trucks with loaded goods waiting.
Right. Let's talk about the issue of accountability now. You wonder that such monies, like you have, rightly stated 7 years ago by the EU leaders, because of the relationship with ECOWAS that they brought in, to ensure regional cooperation and trade and all of that. Who do we hold accountable? I see that the president, the delegation he sent there said they were going to dismantle some of those checks. How would this help to further, the relationship and the ties and, trade between both countries? There are issues of accountability with, the enforcers of the law there. Some people complain that there's double taxation. Besides, some of the machines not working there. You can see from the body language of the ECOWAS president, he's quite disappointed. How then do you, go back to some of those, relationship you have with international communities to still get money to do or fund some of these projects?
This is exactly what I mean. So the things that make us look unserious. Somebody gave you money to put your house in order. And he comes the next day and he says that the house, is leaking. And you are living right in there.
So who do we hold accountable?
Of course, it is the member states. The member states. Right. And I think I have been a member of the ECOWAS task force, 7-man task force on trade. And we have looked at the various member states. There are a lot of tariff and non-tariff barriers. There are a litany of, confusions here and there. A lot of misplacement, and I think there are many countries that are not serious in implementing ECOWAS protocols. Now, I give you one or two
Even
examples.
though being part of the ECOWAS
Being part of the system, being part of the member states that signed out their sovereignties. Okay, look at, for instance, moving goods from here, from Nigeria to Benin, along that same Seme-Krake border. And then getting into Benin Republic, they will charge transit fee, taxing goods that are not coming into your domain. Goods that are just crossing the border, crossing your side, and you tax it. It is nowhere ahead in any climb in trade. And what are the member states doing? I think that the member states, the presidents, the heads of states would need to wake up from the Tea Party. Be realistic. Pick up some kind of political will to act. To act. You can't imagine that when you're moving from Maitu to this Seme, sometimes you have up to between 49 and 59 checkpoints. In the evenings, it's worse. And who are these people in various uniforms? Who brought them there? Is it that we are lawless to the point that nobody can take absolute care? Nobody can, sanitize the place? Nobody can sanction anybody? That's wrong. That's wrong. And I can tell you that, I'm sorry to also say this, that this scanner, as long as they continue making their money, these scanners will not work, never work. Yeah. They will even get exploited. So as to make more money from the innocent traders.
Now, since Tinubu has said they have to dismantle, some of these checks, would that reduce the fears that we have with regards insecurity, human trafficking on that border, as mentioned, in that report as well?
I can tell you that those checkpoints are rather plummeting or exacerbating those crimes. You know why? Because the more they collect the money, the more they look away. The more corrupt practices are right down there, the more they are also begging others to come. Right. And that's why you can see that there's a proliferation of illegal goods. There is all manner of drug crime, proliferation of small arms and light weapons across that same border. Human trafficking, that same border. These things are moved, they are there.
But aren't there sanctions, from ECOWAS on countries?
Unfortunately, there is none. That's the problem with the ECOWAS treaty. I'm a lawyer. I have looked at this treaty severally. And I said, look, we need to wake up to a point where, at least at this 50th anniversary that we're celebrating, we look at the treaty and say, okay, now let us look at who should be sanctioned and move away from sanctioning, the poor because of the rich. Yeah. I hope you understand what I mean. Sanctioning, because if there is any political crisis today, if there's any coup, it is the people that are sanctioned. ECOWAS sanctions the country economically, and it's the poor that suffers. Right. So why don't we sanction these people who are at the border messing us up?
So what's the response, from that idea?
Unfortunately, we have an ECOWAS institution also that is not really balanced now, where you have the parliament, the ECOWAS parliament, as an advisory institution, not a lawmaking organ per se.
So when do at what
and
point?
The ECOWAS Court of Justice also needs to have their jurisdiction, expanded to take care of all of these sanction mechanisms. But importantly, I think the ball stops at the foot of the heads of states.
Right. Right. Totally agree with you there. I would have said, you know, what solution do you prefer? And now that we are in Nigeria, what is the way forward for, you know, Nigeria and Benin Republic? This is a show of shame.
It is a big shame, a big, big shame. And I think President Tinubu and President Talon, they are good friends. They need to sit down, sit together with ECOWAS and find a beautiful way of sorting out all of this mess. But beyond Benin, Nigeria, Benin, what is happening here replicates in all over the member states. Unfortunately, if you move to Aflawe border, for instance, it's worse. Move from there to, I mean, it is bad. The Lagos, along that Lagos-Abidjan corridor, which is the biggest, you know, performing corridor in West Africa, it is very, very terrible. And I think we need to.
We need to. Thank you so much, Dr. Ken Ukaoha, for joining us to discuss, you know, the Benin Republic-Nigeria border. Hopefully something is done about that.